welcome to the August 24th Valley View School Board meeting. I would ask everyone rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Member Baduras. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Member Perro, how about the board mission statement?
Our mission is to empower all learners to be college, career, and life ready, and to develop, grow, and achieve as productive citizens.
Thank you. Ms. Kinder, the agenda.
Yes, sir. We'd like to ask that you approve the agenda as presented.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Treasury report, Mr. Gazafi, if you would please.
You may recall at our last meeting we did pay the bills, approve the bill list, and so tonight we do not have a formal bill list, but we do have the usual summary of treasurer's reports, beginning with treasurer's reports for the month of July, including the balance sheet, summary of revenue expenditures. We do have interim obligation payments and debt service payments for the month of July, totaling $6,989,851.61 for your approval.
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Baduras?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes.
5.2 is a summary of investments. 5.3 is the property taxes received. 5.4 is the state funding update. And 5.5 is the all schools trust account activity. Just one quick comment on the state funding update. You will see there that we were about $2.5 million owed from the state for our categorical payments, primarily special education and transportation. Happy to report that those funds have been received. And so we are left with, I think, just about a $19,000 IOU from the state to end or to start fiscal year 21. So
I did notice that. Thanks for the update. That's, I mean, for us starting this zero, basically at zero, is a really good, it's a good thing, considering our concerns with finances and taxes and so on and so forth, and revenues to run the district. So thank you, Gary. Consent agenda items. Superintendent Kinder.
Yes, consent agenda items. We're seeking approval on 3 items. 6.1, board meeting minutes from August 6, 2020. 6.2, executive session meeting minutes from August 6, 2020. And 6.3, resolution number 2101, authorizing Valley View to approve intervention in certain tax appeal cases.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Baduras?
yes.
Member Campbell? Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Board liaison reports, 7.0. Any and all from my right? Any and all from my left?
I do. Last Tuesday, as our Tuesday meetings we had for the returning back to school, we will be meeting every Tuesday from now through November. I think we're skipping this week because the school actually has started and we're needed elsewhere. So again, I congratulate those people who have worked diligently day and night to get this ready to go and to open up for the students on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Audience participation. Is anybody who wishes to address the board this evening? Seeing none, hearing none. Moving down the agenda. Ms. Kinder, action report item number 9.
Yes, action report 9.1 is in accordance with the Illinois Association of School Boards, with school code, and our legal guidance in the authorization and the destruction of executive session tapes. Upon review of our legal counsel, we are presenting resolution number 2102, the semi-annual review of executive session minutes to determine need for continued confidential treatment and authorization for destruction of executive session tapes more than 18 months old. Again, this is standard protocol in accordance with the school code.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Perro,
Yes.
Member Badouris, Member Campbell,
Yes.
Member Gilbo,
No.
Secretary Sikora,
Yes.
Vice President Zach,
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes. Ms. White?
No action report at this time.
Thank you. Action number 11, Mr. Gazafi, tentative annual budget.
It is that time of year where we find ourselves presenting you with the first draft of our 2021 budget. Overall budget spending plan, just over $305 million. That's about a $4.3 million decrease from last year. The operating budget, $262 million. That's about a 3.47% increase over last year's actuals. It has been fun trying to assemble this budget with all the moving pieces. On the revenue side, 2.3% CPI is baked in, which should net about $3.5 million of additional property tax revenue. Corporate personal property replacement tax, the estimate from the Department of Revenue is a 17.4% decrease over last year. We're probably, I think, the ninth largest recipient of CPPRT in the state. So that's going to net us about $8.6 million or $1.8 million less this year, which is a pretty sizable decrease. The EBF, or evidence-based funding tier funding from the state, will be flat funded, meaning no increase. Each of the last 3 years, we've been receiving about a $1.5 to $1.6 million increase year over year. This is actually a small victory. I kind of alluded to that in the write-up, in that in the days of the downturn in 08 and 09, we received prorated funding, which really hurt those districts that receive a large amount of state funding, such as Valley View, hit us the hardest. And so with this flat funding and the hold harmless provision that's in the new formula, I would take no increase year over year any day. And so obviously there is some concern. Will the state have the money to pay schools as is budgeted? Will they need some sort of bailout? Will they need some sort of borrowing? And so that's all TBD. But right now, this is what we have in front of us, so that's what's budgeted. Same with the mandated categoricals, primarily transportation and special education. No change in the funding levels or amounts. And as I mentioned earlier, all the funds have been received for FY20, so there is no carryover. In the federal realm, CARES grant, $2.7 million. We received notice back in FY20. We've got $1.9 million of that booked in FY21. The biggest difference in that was when we bought the tech devices that the board approved for our pre-K, kindergarten, and first graders. And so the balance of that funding is booked into this budget. The budget is balanced, but we're using our fund balances to make up for the shortage in revenue due to those several factors I mentioned, the reduction in CPPRT. We do anticipate some sort of reduction in property taxes collected. We won't know that until November. We've kind of mentioned that here at the dais in past meetings, and no new dollars from the state. So those three items in the revenue side of the equation is really what's causing us to have to dig into our reserves in order to balance our budget. That being said, the year-end balance is estimated to be 119 days of reserve, which gives us about 4 months of operating cushion. Good amount to have at our ready. We had talked several months ago about the potential for issuing TAWs, or tax anticipation warrants. I'm happy to say I don't think we're going to need to do that. I think it was nice to have available, but again, without a need, I just don't see the value in doing so, even with the low interest rates. And so again, not a bad place for us to land. In terms of the funding, local sources make up 73.5% of our revenue. The state pitches in an additional 21%, and the federal is at 5.5%. Within the budget, we've got a sizable amount of cost related to COVID-19, as you might imagine. Nutrition services purchased some kiosks, some scanners, and supplies for the grab-and-go portion of meal service when we were predicated on having a hybrid model. PPE in large quantities, thermometers, hand sanitizer, spray bottles, toweling, signage, air filters for the HVAC units, plexiglass dividers as needed. We budgeted some day porters for our buildings if and when we return. That's built in so that we've got somebody that's wiping down all the high-touch surfaces throughout the day. Additional garbage cans and liners, electrostatic sprayers in order to be able to disinfect classrooms and our bus fleet. Attendance scanners, Zoom subscriptions, additional licensing for various tech-related items. All of those things have been baked into the budget. It is fair to say that the budget, a large part of the budget is built upon the idea that we were going to be a normal course of operation. Those costs will be trimmed down significantly as we bring you the final draft in September. Something like diesel fuel for our buses. You know, we have a full annual allocation budgeted for that, and so that's something that will be trimmed back. But something that will be increased most likely will be unemployment costs. And so we're waiting for our final statement, our latest statement rather, to see what that looks like in order to make a educated guess on what should be budgeted in terms of unemployment costs. We've got several exhibits in the packet for you. Again, the most important is that Exhibit A gives you our starting balance along with the anticipated revenues, subtract out the expenses, and leaving us with the estimated ending balance for June 30 of 21. Looking at about a $6.7 million deficit. I think, again, that's a worst-case scenario. I think when I bring this back to you in September, that number will be less than what we're seeing here now. And so our reserves of 119 days estimated should actually tick up several days as we kind of fine-tune the budget moving forward. We will put the budget on display for 30 days, beginning tomorrow on our website for anybody who chooses to review it. We'll incorporate any changes and modifications necessary to better reflect those changes coming out of Springfield and any additional COVID-related expenses, and outline those for you at the September 28th board meeting. I do have a recommendation to make, and that's to approve the 2021 tentative budget to be put on display and make available for public inspection for at least 30 days. A public hearing on the budget will take place at the September 28th board meeting, at which time the final adoption will be recommended.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. We have motion and second. Is there no discussion? I just have a comment on the increase in the PPE. Some people are aware of this, some are not. Will County and Kankakee County are considered Region 7. Region 7 just went on an additional restrictions today, sometime later this afternoon. There's several things in here, particularly towards bars and restaurants, but also meetings, social gatherings are limited to the lesser of 25 guests or 25% of overall room capacity. No party buses, not that we have those, but, and then organized group recreational activities, no changes. Sports guidance ineffective as August 15th remains in effect. Outdoor activities not included in the above exposure settings continue per current DCEO advice. I'm sure that IDPH and ISB will also have some comments following some of that. But yeah, we did make some purchases, and we have some, or we will have some expenses related to that if we get reopened in a regular classroom setting or a partial classroom setting. And I want to point out Vic especially, and others up here, but Vic was tireless working and making comments and trying to find out information on reopening and the equipment and the things necessary. Mike Lopez is not here this evening, but also Gary and the phone calls that went into that. Again, we impress, and I want, don't ever leave here thinking that safety is not first and foremost. It's just that simple. Because we know we have multi-generational families living in homes. We don't want kids taking something home that they may pass along to their grandparent or their parent or a sibling that may have some other health issues. Just not the way we want to see things happen. So there will be some costs in there. Hopefully they won't be so substantial that we can't bear them, but we know that we're not going to get the cheapest. We're going to get the best for what we fit our needs. And I think that needs to be explained and understood. So thank you to all the people who have heard over that and kept a diligent eye. So we have a motion and we have a second. If there's no further comments, a roll call vote would be in order to approve a tentative budget for display for 30 days and beyond for approval, correct? Pending a hearing.
Member Badouris? Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley.
Action
Next.
report 11.2 is the recommendation to approve the transportation modular building purchase on the RHS campus. Back in 2017, the board approved the rental of a modular building for use by the transportation department to support the increase in buses and related drivers. This was resulted primarily from the expansion of the early childhood center and insufficient parking at the current transportation center. The building allows the drivers a place to punch in and out, have lunch, access restrooms, and eliminates the need to shuttle them to and from the main transportation center, as was happening prior to the siting of the modular. This agreement is being finalized in conjunction with the RHS baseball field complex with the Village of Romeoville. Originally, we had a 3-year operating lease, which has reached its expiration. We have the option of continuing the rental lease arrangement or to purchase the unit outright. We discussed this with the Finance Committee and came to the conclusion that we are recommending a direct purchase of the modular for a lump sum of $48,000. The unit is in very good shape, has been functional for 3 years. We've also invested the necessary stairs, ramps, and other furnishings, along with underground utilities, low voltage, and landscaping. So at this time, we are recommending approval of the purchase of the modular building from Innovative Modular Solutions Incorporated for a one-time purchase price of $48,000, subject to final attorney approval of the contract.
Motion?
So moved.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Badouris? Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes.
Final action report this evening is a recommendation to approve a 10-year life safety survey proposal. We brought this to you at the July 20th board meeting. We had a proposal that we received from White & Company, one of the district's architects of record. As required by school code, the district is required to survey each of its buildings every 10 years, and we are required to complete this report prior to December of 2020. We've got 2.37 million square feet of school space throughout our communities and our district. And at the time, we had received a proposal from White & Company at 8.2 cents per square foot at a total cost of $195,000. A question was asked about, what if we bid it? And at the time, I had told the board that we felt like White had a pretty good understanding of our buildings, seeing that they built several of them, been in and out of all of our buildings throughout the years, and I think there was a question about how do we know we're getting a fair shake. So we went to Tria Architecture, who's also done a lot of work in the district over the last several years. Been very satisfied with their work, certainly more than capable, and they provided us a proposal at 8 cents a square foot. So just a little bit less, but hey, $6,000 is $6,000. And so upon talking with the principals there, we feel that we'd like to give them the business. And so they are an architect of record for the district. So the recommendation is to approve a 10-year life safety survey proposal from Tria Architecture in the amount of $189,752.64.
Motion?
So moved. So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say thanks, Gary, for shopping around, and I'm glad you found a better deal.
Motion second, no further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris? Member Campbell?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Ms. Nash, Consolidated Action Report 12.1.
Yes, sir. Consolidated Action Report 12.1 is our Consolidated Action Report for certified and classified personnel. This evening, we're seeking your approval on 45 items for certified personnel, 35 items for classified personnel, 5 items for classified administrative personnel, and 5 items for certified administrative personnel.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, a
Second.
second. Motion, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell? Yes. Member Badouris? Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Ms. Nash, 12.2, Board Policies.
Yes, sir. In your packet, we have 4 board policies that we are seeking your approval on this evening. They were presented to you for information at the July 20th, 2020 board meeting for review. The chart below reflects titles and the last amended dates, and as you can see, several of them have not been updated in several years. And since that time, there have been several recent developments in state case law, federal case law, as well as updates to Equal Employment Opportunity Commission guidance under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, as well as updates to the Fair Labor Standards Act, which guides some of these policies. So this evening, we're seeking your approval on the 4 policies that are in front of you.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second? Motion and second. Any discussion?
I have a few comments about that. With these policies, I know that it is one of the board's duties to make policy for the school district. And I know that we have to update and be compliant with the law. And I think Elizabeth does a great job at doing that for us. Elizabeth, thank you for doing that. But I also think that there needs to be more input from the board. And I know Steve and I have talked, and Deb and I have talked, and a few others have talked about getting together and having a committee so that there are more board members that have input to do, to have a say-so and to have some, I guess just some input on the policies. So I'm looking forward to that in the future. So thank you for considering that, and that'll be a good thing.
We have a motion, we have a second. If there's no further comment, roll call vote would be in order.
Member Badouris? Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
No.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Information report, return together, 365 plan update. You should say 365 U for the update. Just for
It should, yeah, we definitely can add that, you. Okay, this is going to be a kind of a standard practice from today and going forward for all board meetings in the upcoming future. As you know, things change daily, sometimes hourly, so a lot of things are very fluid, and that's going to require regular communication to the board, which is occurring, but also to the community as well. I have some slides that will be projected on the screen here. Some of this will look familiar if you've seen our plan presentations before in terms of our reopening goals. Those goals remain the same, and number 1 goal is safe and secure learning and working conditions for our staff and students. Ensure that we are responsive to changing conditions, flexibly meet learning and support needs for every learner, high quality instruction and support in an innovative and responsive fashion, and a lived commitment to our core belief of equity in meeting the diverse needs of our students and families, and then reallocating or allocating resources to those priority areas. So tonight I want to provide you with an update on how our planning efforts are going and provide an update on the continued preparation for a transition to on-site learning giving all the variables and considerations. As I shared previously, and the board approved the plan presented on August 6th, we are beginning in a period of remote learning for all learners, with the site set on on-site learning with a remote learning option. So of course, we're planning to welcome all of our students back virtually on Wednesday, August 26th for grades K through 12, and our little learners a little bit later than that on September 2nd. And our staff, our teachers, support personnel, leaders, every individual support operations throughout the district has been working very diligently for this virtual reopening, and have been completing today day 3 of our Institute Day today, and one more day to go before our kids come back. So as I said, we begin our virtual kickoff to the school year on August 26th and early childhood on September 2nd. And as we are preparing for that, we have provided a survey sent out to families for social, emotional, and other needs. And so our staff is working very hard at connecting and responding to those needs that have been identified. We are working on communication from the building level and the teacher level to have student and family access to schedules, and ensuring that students have everything they need to begin their remote learning on Wednesday, the 26th. We are providing supports for readiness for online access, ensuring that all of our students have access to their appropriate platform. And we're continuing the process and communication for pickup of materials, as well as technology, which I'll refer to in a moment. In the same time, we've been continuing our partnerships with many of our community partners. One of those areas is providing e-learning or remote learning supervision or childcare for students in grades pre-K through 5. We continue to update our community e-learning supervision resources that are posted on our website. We also have a list of additional resources, many community resources that we can connect our families with. We encourage our families to visit the website to access that information or to reach out, and the district or the building, all of our staff will be happy to support. We're continuing to share this information on social media as well. Our staff work expectations have been established and communicated. Our staff have not stopped working. They're working around the clock to ensure that we are ready in every fashion to support our students beginning on Wednesday. We have 3 of 4 Institute days in the books. We have another Institute day tomorrow. And our staff, teachers, support personnel, leaders, everyone has been engaged in a great deal of learning, collaboration, training around student social emotional learning, health and safety protocols, virtual engagement instruction, instructional technology, curriculum and service delivery, remote learning planning and collaboration, and adult wellness. This is a whole lot. And even just listening to me, say that list out loud should give you an indication of just how much there is to take on and is being put on the plates of our staff as they are making this monumental shift to becoming remote instructors and connecting and instructing our students. So they have been working and putting in so much effort, and I hope our families see that when they see the new and improved structured remote learning opportunities and supports that are being provided to our students. Of course, we know it won't be perfect. We've experienced some bumps in the road. This morning we had a outside service interruption to Zoom. That was a nationwide occurrence, and so these things are going to be a part of the way of life since we are so reliant on technology. But they took it in stride, they adapted, they adjusted, and they will continue to connect. And as soon as we were able to, we were back up and running. So, I just encourage everyone to continue to be patient. I see a lot of parents, having questions and figuring this out as they're working to support their own families and learners at home. We know this is a great deal to take on for staff, students, and families. And so we just continue to ask for your patience and partnership. It truly is something that none of us have ever done before, but we are doing our absolute best to make it happen. Our technology team is no different. They have not stopped working since the spring, ensuring that our students have working devices, providing devices for new students, students who do not have devices. They've answered more than 4,000 calls from families to help desk since the beginning of August. We have a student device survey out that any family needing support, internet, device support, is able to fill out and get responses. We continue to work through those families that have made appointments for these needs, and we will continue to offer our curbside for repair or support. And then we are also working with transportation to provide a service to drop off any repaired devices for broken student devices at home. So essentially, what you see is another example of our staff going above and beyond to ensure that any barrier that's present for a family or a learner, we're going to find a way to meet that challenge and ensure the students have what they need. They're providing support for our staff, same type of situation, to ensure our staff are fully supported in everything that they need to switch to this virtual world of meeting our students' need and adapting to the tech demands. Families can make an appointment to pick up a device, get a replacement. I just wanted to highlight this here. This information is all available on our website. And again, we will do everything we can to continue to be responsive to needs that exist. Nutrition service, another group of our staff who continue to adapt and respond to needs. There is a survey, an order form that was made available for families to pre-order meals for delivery. We're encouraging pre-order for delivery. Curbside is also available. Meals will be prepackaged, charged to the student's meal account for free and reduced lunch. Those meals will be free, and a student ID is required. So we encourage our families to fill out the order form, the pre-order form, and that's, again, located on our website and also linked into these slides that are available online, to ensure that our kids have nutritious meals and hopefully help the families in every way possible with the convenience and the support of having nutrition provided for our students. Our buildings have been working, our building teams, our building principals, assistant principals, leaders have been working nonstop on all of the details for coordination and communication to make this happen. I know that there are still questions, a lot of questions, but we are being responsive, and reach out to the buildings, reach out to the district, and we will connect you with the answers that you need. There's a great deal of information that's being communicated from the buildings, and we know that's a lot to take in, but you can also find this on social media accounts as well as online. And we will continue these updates as well. There's a community-led effort by some of our parents right now with a private Facebook group that any VVSD parent can join. It's the VVSD Parent Network for Remote Learning. And there's a lot of questions being asked and answered by parents, by staff, and it's really great to see because everyone is truly navigating this, but we're helping each other through it because it's certainly a lot of information. So as we are planning for what comes next, of course our primary focus right now is on supporting solid implementation of improved and structured remote learning model, and then also preparing for on-site transition and a revised hybrid plan. We know many are anxious to hit that first benchmark and determine if we can bring our learners back on site or determine if we can transition learners on earlier than our planned benchmark. So we are moving through these stages, and right now we are, of course, solidly in stage 1 with remote learning for all. I wanted to spend a few moments this evening on the health and safety updates. I think this is very important for us to realize just how fluid this situation is. We are completing or have completed, individuals from every building have completed contact tracing course. I'm just completing mine now. And so this is a new duty placed upon school administrators, school nurses who are working diligently to not only provide the services they're accustomed to providing, but to now become very well versed in managing public health matter. So we are becoming contact tracers. And we are implementing our protocols for reporting, cleaning, initiating contact tracing. It's all in effect. We have had many situations arise where we are implementing these protocols, so we're getting a great deal of practice. And then we continue to adapt based on the most recent Illinois Department of Public Health guidance, as well as continuing to work with the Will County Health Department on our roles in communication and coordination. It's very much an evolving partnership because we have far more contact than ever before because it's just a standard way now that we must work through this situation. We have our initial delivery of personal protective equipment, gloves, masks, thermometers, gowns, modular plexi to each building complete. Of course, we'll continue to monitor that stock as President Quigley spoke to previously. And so all of these things listed on this slide are things that are ensuring that our physical space is ready for when we begin to transition. Signage, floor markings, furniture, physical space, increased air circulation. And we do have a lot of staff in buildings now as well. I wanted to point out with one of the recent evolvements is the Illinois Department of Public Health county level metric guidance for schools. So what this is interim guidance for schools on adaptive pause, which essentially means utilizing periods of remote learning as a strategy to limit contact or to decrease transmission when there are positive cases present. So I have a link on this slide if anyone is interested in reading the entire document, and I just have a screenshot of the chart present. But what this essentially outlines is metric guidance for local health departments working with school districts based on these identified metrics that we are now monitoring regularly. And they're available on the Illinois Department of Public Health website. We are looking at alert level based on the defined metrics, the weekly county case rate, the weekly overall county case number increase, the weekly county youth case number increase, which was not previously published, but they will be providing that to us, and as well as the weekly test positivity. So we've spoken about metrics before, and in addition to our internal metrics, which I'm going to speak about very soon, these are metrics defined by the Illinois Department of Public Health that are guiding our decision making in terms of, are we at a moderate level of community transmission? Are we at a minimal level? Or we're in a substantial level of community transition. So I'm going to speak to that next in the slide. So I mention all of this so that you understand that we are going to work on our transition to bring our students back on site. But of course, a lead indicator is the metrics from the county level from a health perspective. So despite the best plans, until our region and our county is in a place where we can safely bring students back to school and manage the transmission in a local sense, we have to be very cognizant of the county level metrics as well as our region level metrics. There is currently, as President Quigley alluded to earlier, resurgence of positive COVID-19 cases in Illinois, as well as in our Will County and in our Region 7, which is Will County and Kankakee County. This chart that I have posted is available on the Illinois Department of Public Health website, and this is updated regularly. This average is 8.3% for our region as of August 20th, and it's actually the same today on the 21st. And so what this means, and if you were aware or caught this on the news this afternoon, 3 consecutive days greater than 8% of positivity rate means that additional restrictions, mitigation restrictions, have been put into place. And at this time, of course, that means a great deal for restaurants and group gatherings, events, things of that nature. And at this time, it's just a point of awareness for us, obviously, because we are in a remote learning setting, but we will continue to follow this very closely, as well as the other metrics that are present there. This is a troubling trend. If this trend continues, of course, we will find tighter mitigation restrictions put in place. This could potentially have implications for schools, of course, so that will be something that we will be watching very closely as we are preparing to make recommendations for safely bringing students on site. We also were issued additional guidance from the Illinois Department of Public Health on exclusion guidance. And this is a great deal of information to take in, so if you're listening at home or you're listening here this evening, and this seems like a lot, it is. And we continue to understand this, make sense of this, work with our partners. I mentioned this point here because this is very, very important, because exclusion guidance has been issued, which essentially tells us when we would be either excluding an individual for a positive COVID case, so that isolation, or for contact with a COVID positive individual, or for symptoms of COVID-like symptoms. And so in each of these instances, any individual who has symptoms, fever of 100.4 or higher, headache, shortness of breath, cough, sore throat, the whole list of symptoms would be required to be excluded. Likewise, any sibling of that individual. And so at the same time we're monitoring positive cases and isolation, we also are monitoring symptoms, and this would be important to keep in mind. because as we're working through this, we are experiencing currently with staff and soon, when students return, that there will be much fluidity between the transition between on-site learning or teaching and remote learning and teaching due to the public health effort to reduce transmission. And so this is going to be something that we continue to work through and will be fully prepared for. But it's also important that we as a community realize that as great of a challenge as keeping our students home for learning now is, this is going to be something that even when we return to on-site learning or hybrid learning, that this will be a very real reality if children demonstrate symptoms, are ill, or have a family member who is COVID positive or has symptoms and is being tested at home. And so this is certainly something that we are continuing to plan for in the sense of our instruction in remote and how we could most effectively transition and support that need, because this is going to be a very real challenge that all schools are working through right now. And additionally, in district, we are monitoring additional metrics to support decision-making related to on-site transitions. So like I said, we're monitoring the number of staff and students with positive COVID identification. I'll be very transparent and say that we've had multiple in the recent days. Many of those have been staff who had not been on site in some time. So thankfully, they're isolated at home, safe, taking care of themselves. They had not had contact with others. We've also had cases of staff on site who had tested COVID positive. And so that required us to implement our protocols, conduct contact tracing, notification for anyone who had direct contact. But what this tells us, and it's very instructive of, the more individuals we bring back on site, the greater that effort is, and the more important it is that we are very solid on our protocols. We have staff members at home right now in isolation for COVID positive cases. We also have staff members who are quarantined because of direct contact with individuals with COVID positive cases outside of the school. So this is a very fluid thing, and this will, of course, be a very key decision-making point when determining if we can safely bring students back on site and if we can meet the logistical demand for staffing support on site. We are also monitoring our current and anticipated staff FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, and Americans with Disabilities Act request requiring that would have an impact on staffing as well. And guest teacher is going to be a critical support and resource in meeting some of these needs that arise. So that is a great deal of information, one that I will be continuing to update you on, but when we are making future decisions about the possibility of coming back on site, these are all going to be key points in our decision making. And as we continue to plan not only for supporting what's going to kick off on Wednesday, August 26th, we are also continuing to plan in the background for those eventual transitions. Our transportation department is continuing to be extremely responsive, not only for current needs for delivery, meal distribution, device distribution, as well as routes that are going to occur because of our possible transitions that are up and coming. They are staying on top of it with new cleaning procedures and every other thing imaginable to be responsive to the demands of the district. In the forefront, we are also continuing our conversations about activities and athletics, and we will, of course, be consideration for any future activity or athletics, and that could take place on-site or virtual. We do have limited high school IHSA sports occurring presently, and middle school IESA sports will not be held. However, we are having great consideration for what we could eventually offer in the future or what we could modify for a virtual offering, because we know that our kids are losing a lot, and if we can possibly offer something that is another connection, something that they love, connecting with their coach or their sponsor, their classmates, their teammates, it would be something that we, of course, would offer for our students if we are able to. So a great deal of planning is continuing to occur, both for our immediate next step and in the background for the planning for what comes next. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or senior administration can support questions as well.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. You said that we do have some people that have COVID right now, and I know one of the slides, it was a little small to read. So maybe for the people at home and for us, could you just tell us what the protocol is for the ones that have COVID, for the ones that were near the ones that have COVID, and were they near them for 15 minutes or longer within 6 feet? Like what are we doing with those people?
Yes, so the district absolutely has those health and safety protocols in place in accordance with the CDC guidance, Centers for Disease Control, and the Illinois Department of Public Health guidance as well. So if we are notified of an individual who has a COVID positive case, that's when we implement contact tracing. And what contact tracing essentially means is that we first isolate that individual, they're excluded from the workplace, and then we contact any individual that may have had contact with our staff members, and direct contact meaning within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes cumulatively, not at one sitting, but throughout the course of a day. So thankfully, we have strong protocols in place for distancing and wearing masks, and our staff are being diligent in implementing those. So a lot of times there aren't instances, there's not a lot of direct contacts that we will have to contact, but we do notify them if there were other people that may have had contact, but we are unsure, we do send a notification there as well. And then the health department does the contact tracing for anything outside of school. So for many of the cases that we've been notified of, the staff had not been on site during the time frame when they would have been contagious or would have been infectious. So in that instance, there was no contact tracing initiated. They had not been on site, they had not had any contact, yet we're made aware of it, and because then they're not able to come on site. And then if there's instances where they did have direct contact, those individuals were notified directly, and then they too then are put in a period of quarantine for 14 days until they are cleared to return to work. And of course, that is a very fluid situation as well, that the healthcare providers give guidance and direction on, because then if they do become symptomatic or they do have a positive test themselves, they then would have a period of isolation until they were then deemed that they could return to work.
So even if they don't have symptoms and you're saying these people did have that contact for 15 minutes or longer, but if they don't have symptoms, they are still gone for 14 days?
Yes, and that is the case for any individual, not just in schools right now. I know of a personal acquaintance at the moment that both adults in the home who have jobs in different industries are quarantined at home for 14 days because their son had a positive COVID case. So they are required to quarantine and get that clearance before they are required or allowed to come back to the workplace. So so if a staff member has a COVID positive individual in their household, they're not allowed to come to work right now. They will be working from home, but they are not allowed to come to work right now, and that's in accordance with the guidance.
So on the COVID front, it was announced earlier it's actually late last week now, that the University of Illinois has received preliminary federal approval for a saliva-based rapid test. Mm-hmm. They are ramping up to be able to provide as many as 10,000 tests a day, which will be very beneficial, because if you've talked to pretty much anybody, you've read something about this. Sometimes people test positive, then they go in for an advanced test, and it turns out to be a false positive, and so on and so forth. So trying to get ahead of that and letting medical science and science research help out in this situation, and from where they were to where they are in this period of time, hopefully that test will take, and that will be help in reducing some of these unknowns that we're currently facing. So, but until that time, we are where we are. So, Rachel, thank you for the presentation. Anybody else have any further questions? Thank you. Moving down the agenda. Initial plan for equity. I'm not sure. Is that Rachel or is that Nita?
It's both of us.
Both of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get us started. So this is an information report to provide the board and the community with an update on the planning that we are doing and continue to do in our work and living our core value of equity. Just to start out big picture, the district mission and vision are centered around equity in the sense of meeting the needs, empowering all learners to be college, career, and life ready, to develop, grow, and achieve as productive citizens. Our district vision is also centered around that in terms of providing every student what they need in order to meet this high level of growth and success. Our vision is we will hold high expectations, provide collaborative supports to ensure academic, social, and emotional success for all students, regardless of race, gender, income, geography, disability, or native language. Our core value in Valley View School District, one of our core values is equity and also partnership and continuous improvement. So what this update is centered around is in the work of equity and how we will continue to renew our commitment to living this core value and to ensure that the work that we're doing in Valley View reflects our words and our actions on a consistent basis. In May, I sent out a district message and a community message centered around our commitment to providing equitable opportunities and supports for every learner, including our children of color and our children from diverse backgrounds. And I'm very proud of a lot of the work that we have built in a foundation of committing to this work and making great strides in challenging beliefs that run counter to our core beliefs in Valley View, and also fixing inequities in the system that were not designed to support every child, particularly minority children and children from poverty. So while we've taken the charge of closing some of these gaps head on for our learners, we know that we have a long way to go. We know that we've made initial efforts with restorative justice practices long before it was required. We know that we've taken some first steps in educating ourselves on trauma-informed practices and topics of social justice. We know that we've taken foundational efforts to use voice from our community and all of our stakeholders to continue to have the conversation about how we can have an inclusive and equitable learning experience. And we've continued to engage in efforts to diversify our workforce and create career path and opportunities for our students in partnership with our community partners. And so while we are proud of our progress, we realize we have a long way to go to truly impact systemic change and lasting change in Valley View. And we realize we will do this in partnership with our larger community. And so Assistant Superintendent White and I have just wanted to share a few things with you this evening about our recommitting to this work and taking the next step in engaging voice and taking planning to the next level of how we will continue to grow our efforts in this area.
Thank you. I really would like to echo, and just being here a short while, I've seen some of the great things that are occurring here in our district around restorative practice, trauma-informed instruction, and the equity work. I've had lots of conversations with principals and parents, and they continue to reach out, asking, what are our steps for equity? What are we doing about Black Lives Matter? And that's why we wanted to bring this to you. And it is going to be a joint effort by the school district, definitely going to form a steering committee whereby we have parents, we hear the voice of students, some of our business partners, and we're looking to have a call to committee sometime beginning in September, okay? And with this committee, our goals would surround creating a framework where we can focus on equity. One where we can establish common language. We could establish goals, strategies, action steps, so that we have equity in action continuously in our district. And we would like to begin this work again in September, as I stated. We would spend the months of October through February researching, hearing from our students, hearing from our staff and our community members, and hoping that some themes would emerge. We would also examine data. We have to identify what are the inequities in our school district and identify how we can intervene and interfere and disrupt the equities that we encounter with the research that we do. And hopefully, by February, we can begin crafting a framework. That framework that I talked about, we can have a set of conditions where we can address the inequities that are identified. Some other things that may emerge who knows what the themes will be, but I know the one issue is we've talked about curriculum and the social justice course. And so hopefully we will have that conversation when we hear the voices of students and parents to see if their child, their diverse background is reflected in our curriculum. And if not, again, how do we mitigate that and what are we going to do about it? So in February, begin crafting that framework, and by May, hopefully have a presentation to the Board of Education with the work of that committee. So those are some of our next steps for the steering committee that we plan to form. And hopefully we'll accomplish much. And of course, this will be aligned with our district strategic plan and those goals as well. So I definitely wanted to reiterate that. Any questions?
I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
Within what you guys were telling us about, it says that we have made strides in challenging beliefs that run counter to our core beliefs. So I was just wondering, what are some things that run counter to our core beliefs here at Valley View?
So initially, and what I was referring to is kind of where we've been previously. A very basic example, and a place that we started quite some time ago, was the disproportionate representation of our minority students in upper level coursework, the disproportionate representation of our minority students in remedial courses, which were since eliminated, and then also having conversations about how students were growing and achieving, and not being afraid to have conversations about how subgroups were doing, how well were we meeting the needs of all learners, and not just that, but how well were we meeting the needs of specific groups of learners. So some initial efforts that we took were eliminating subpar courses, providing greater opportunity and access and supports to higher level courses like advanced placement coursework, honors courses. I'm sure if you've been around Valley View for a long time, you would hear Dr. Mitchum use the example of when you used to walk into an honors course, you could tell that it was an honors course by how few minority children were in the seats. That's not the case in Valley View anymore. And so that has certainly shifted. There's definitely many examples. Our staff continues to dig into that to see how well we are meeting the needs of our kids and subgroups of kids. If you recall previous school improvement efforts, you recall us having targets set for specific groups of learners, students with IEPs, students from a low-income background, students of a minority background. So definitely not being afraid to challenge anything that would be seen as a barrier from meeting every child's needs.
Okay, thank you. Also, we talk about trauma-informed practices. So if you could explain that to me, as well as your definition of equitable, and maybe help the parents understand what restorative justice is. These are three of your things that you want to accomplish.
I'll go ahead and speak to that. So when we talk about trauma-informed practices, it's really about understanding that our students come to us in a variety of ways, and teachers having that understanding as they approach students.
Could you just speak into the microphone a little
sorry.
more? Thank you.
Is that better? So I was saying that students come to us in a variety of ways, and teachers understanding those ways in which they come. So some students may encounter trauma at home. There's an ACEs score that a child could have, and ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Educational Experiences that they may have. Depending on if they come from a one-parent or two-parent home, that's an ACEs score that a child could have. Depending on, whether they've been homeless, employed, parents have been employed, et cetera. It's another score. And so therefore, children are coming from a variety of homes. And teachers have to understand how to approach those children, how to have conversations with them, how to understand from where they've come. And so the district has, for example, Superintendent Kinder and I today were taking a look at some trauma-informed training that the teachers took a day or two ago on Friday. And again, how to work with students, have these conversations, and understand the homes and backgrounds from where they come. So those are examples of trauma-informed practices that our teachers have been exposed to. When it comes to restorative practices deal with a variety of things as well. Some things could be having circle time in the morning. Again, when students come into classroom, teacher taking the opportunity to form a community, again, to find out how the student is for the day, set the tone for the day, instead of taking a leap at times if an infraction occurs with discipline. Again, understanding the source, having those conversations with the child to repair the harm, having the child understand what the child did and how the child can repair it to continue moving on with those days, with his or her day. Those are all restorative-based practices that are currently occurring in some of our classrooms, in which teachers are being trained consistently. And again, we just had a trauma yesterday and also on Friday with our teachers. So those are examples.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, there was one more. Your definition of equity?
Well, that's one of the things that we plan to define with our committee. We have to, again, have common language. We did an exercise about a week or so ago with our administrators, whereby the definition of equity at each school site could be different. And that's one thing that we plan to define with this equity steering committee. I have a personal definition where it's about eliminating barriers and ensuring that we have access and supports for all of our students, but that's my own personal definition of equity. It's important for us as Valley View to create that definition of equity for us. That's one thing which is going to drive the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving down the agenda, legal services report.
Nothing. I have nothing to report.
Thank you. AFT report. No report. Thank you. Valley View Council. No report. Thank you. Valley View Office Personnel Council. No report. Any old business before the board this evening? Any new business before the board this evening? Any questions from the public on actions we have taken this evening? Please come forward, state your name.
Greetings. I'm Glenn Irvin. I was here last speaking the 20th of July, and my two main things at that time were focused on, obviously, the hot topic of the day, which is the response to coronavirus and how the teaching vehicle is going to be done. And then the other one is strategic planning. And I actually plan to really come back at the next meeting with a little bit more detail, but I was surprised to see this initial plan on equity. It's a bit concerning. And here's my thought on it and just the data that I want to review. Because, I've been looking at this. I told you guys I was going to study. At some point, I'll take Ms. Kinder up on the point to get more information that you guys have. But I've been waiting because you guys have been really focused on heavy lifting for the last few weeks. So out of respect for that, didn't think it was the time to actually go into it. But here's the key thing. It's great to see this plan for equity. You guys say you got a live commitment to equity. And I hear Ms. White say that there's no standardized comment of what is equity. The school board is asking what is equity in a body that has a live commitment to it. I see a plan that's going to take 8 to 9 months to develop. Ms. White, I just asked, is it possible to do something sooner? I realize there's specific parts of research that you need to do, but anybody within an hour of going and looking at the publicly available data can see significant issues with diversity, equity, and inclusion beyond aspects of the social components. Now, those are important, I agree. But as a body that's trying to educate all of our human beings in a fair way and have results, you've got 33% of chronic absenteeism at Bolingbrook High School. What if we look at that from a demographics perspective? What is that going to look like across these different parties or bodies of people, the demographics? You also speak about or you have the data about four-year graduation rate. Almost 75, 80% of your student body at Bolingbrook High School is Black and Hispanic. And you've got 84%. Is that equity? You've got standardized testing. And when you look at this, you look at your major demographics, Black, Hispanic, economically disadvantaged. A full 75 to 80% of those are approaching. So what I'd like to ask is, when you go and you put together a plan, and this is the same thing that I spoke about last time on the strategic plan that's going to be in development, I imagine, soon, have some real metrics, some real teeth to this, something that's measurable. I read your guys' note tonight, and it's great. There's a lot of things that have happened, but I think you guys have to be honest and say, here's some of the problems that we really have. Put it out there for people to see, because not everybody's going in and looking at this data and these reports. And you guys aren't sharing it. Get it out there.
Sir, with all due respect, that is part of the process. So tonight's report was just to let the board know that that work is going to be initiated with a stakeholder group that has representatives from parents, students, community, staff, students. The equity audit and digging into the data again in a measurable way, as well as in a qualitative way, and listening to voice, as well as looking to the research, is part of this process. So tonight, that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was to communicate that this work was happening. So we have, and we will continue, and that information will be made public.
Thank you. And like I said, I didn't plan to come up, but I really had to, because let's look at what this body has done in terms of strategic plan. Again, there's no measurable metrics that are put out there, but we're underperforming in a lot of places. Who's going to put it out there and say, what are we going to close the gap with? The gentleman went through the budget tonight. I didn't hear anything talking about we're going to take funds and try to close some major gaps. If you want true equity, you've got to stand up and say, we've got problems. And I'm not saying these are catastrophic. I'm not saying they're insurmountable. But if you're not talking about it and creating plans to it, I think it's difficult to actually make true progress.
Thank you. I can say for myself, and maybe others want to chime in, we have never shied away from confronting any problems that we've had in this district. We have, since I've been on this board, we've had all kinds of issues. Getting our challenged learners up to a level, getting our economic challenged learners up to a level, doing the things that we can do with what we're handed. Jim Mitchum sat here several years ago and said, we do what we can with what we have, but now we have to do it better. And if you go back to where we were, to where we are making strides forward. And I think we have closed some tremendous gaps. I'm not sure of all the numbers that you cited. I thought our graduation rates were a little higher at BHS.
They are. And sir, I encourage you to go on board docs and look back at previous academic progress updates so you can actually see the quantitative progress. You can see the difference. You can see that we have 2 exemplary schools, 16 commendable schools, 1 school that has a target for individualized education, students who have an IEP that has a specific area of improvement noted for that. You can also see our growth percentile, and that holds true across demographics. You can see that we are students of almost nearly every background demographic breakdown are growing more in Valley View than they are growing compared to their peers across the state. And you can see that holds true for performance on SAT. There are very few school districts or schools that are getting the results that we are getting with students from minority or low-income background, and that's the simple fact, and that's based on data. Now, with that said, we have identified many areas for opportunity, and I will be the first to say, good, bad, or ugly. Let's talk about it, let's address it, and let's improve it. That's one of our core values in continually improving. Okay, we're doing great, how can we do better? principal of one of our exemplary schools is sitting in the audience right now. She is fierce about school improvement, continuous improvement. Okay, we're good. How can we do better? How can we improve? Her staff lives that, just like in every other building across the district. So I offered you my card last meeting and said, come, let's talk. I can walk you through this. This is the second time you visited a board meeting, and so of course there's a great deal of information I could share with you outside of this setting, or refer you to the publicly available documents, or walk through the Illinois School Report Card website with you to show you this breakdown. That said, the strategic planning process, the school improvement process does include measurable quantitative goals. We review them, and that will be part of our ongoing process. So my offer stands to come and have a conversation, to sit down and discuss this, because to say that it's not occurring, or that we don't, or that we're not getting results is simply not true.
Great. If you just let me chime back on a couple points here. One, I didn't say that results are not occurring. I spoke to the results that are. Specifically, when I quoted the 83.9%, I said 84% graduation rate. You look at the 2018 Illinois report card, the long form version.
That's not accurate.
It's publicly available data, so I'm not able to say if it's accurate or not, but I have to take it at face value. But it's 84%. If it's not accurate, then it should be corrected.
I think it's 86%, or 88.
88.
88.
At a total school, but what I was talking about in the scope, or as you guys say, with an equity lens, looking at the demographics, I talked about almost 80% of your body is at 83.9% graduation. Is that correct or not?
I didn't hear the last part of your question.
83.9% in the 2018 available data for Hispanic and Black students, which is almost 80% of the student body. The four-year graduation rate is 83.9%.
I don't have the broken down data to the percentage in front of me at this moment. But that is something that that team as well is aware of. We know that there are opportunities identified. We look at that comparison in terms of hitting that benchmark and what those gaps are. There are gaps. There are definitely gaps that exist. The one point that I'd like to make, though, is that
the data right here, I can show it to you. Can I approach so you can at least see it? You said you couldn't find it, but I found it within the course of this meeting. So just to address the other point that you had said, look, I'm not attacking the plan, but what I'm asking for is, can you do it faster? I think the data, most of the data is out there, it's available. I don't think we need to spend 5 or 6 months studying and researching completely on a lot of the data that's already compiled. And I'm excited to see what's going on. I said that I want to be a part of this. I have your card from the 20th of July. Like I said, I did not engage with you guys because you've been extremely busy, and I understand that. So I didn't even mean to come up tonight, but after I saw that report, it's concerning. It just is concerning. When you look at the published data, so all I can look at is, and you mentioned Illinois report card. That's exactly where I've been. I've been looking at it. I've been mining the data. The data doesn't look great. I'm going to take the data, I'm going to plot it up, then we can look at it specifically, and then if some of it's wrong, it's wrong. But there's a lot of data that's not wrong, and in the lens of equity, what are we going to do as a community to close these gaps? I mean, these are people that we're sending out. You got people that aren't even meeting, high percentage of people that aren't even meeting math proficiency. It's dangerous.
Sir, I'd like to say that I've conducted equity audits before, and it does take time. I applaud you in having that information and knowing it, and I as well will know it. But remember that we're going to have multiple or many constituents there, and they may not know it and understand it. And it's going to take some time to go through that and explain it and work through and hear see quantitative data and also hear qualitative stories. And it takes a while to gather that and to have those themes emerge. And so it's not something that can be done quickly. We want to do it well. And, you know, I said the research will start happening in October, and us reviewing the data and talking about it, and we will definitely plan simultaneously. So please keep that in mind, okay?
Thank you. And then just one last point. Ms. Kinder, you had mentioned that, there's quantitative data for the strategic plan. So I downloaded the long-form strategic plan on the website, and there's nothing quantitative there. So I know that you said that there's things that haven't been released, so I will follow up prior to the next meeting, and I hope to continue the discussion. I appreciate the time. Ms. White, again, I would like to challenge you. I've done plans, I've done studies worldwide, and yes, it does take time, but when it's important, you got to find the way, right? On the 20th, Mr. Quigley and we talked about you got to bring better than your A game. We're bringing better than the A game for the coronavirus. Let's do it for the long haul. Graduation rates, math proficiency, ELA, absenteeism, really basic table stakes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no one else who wants to address the board, we'll move down the agenda. Any announcements by the board? From my right.
Yes, I'd like to just wish everybody that's coming back to school, the children, the parents, the staff, the new norm. What is it going to be? None of us really know. But we're going to look at it, we're going to attack it, and we'll do our best to make sure everybody's safe and gets an education. And hopefully we'll be back in school in a decent amount of time. So welcome back, starting on Wednesday.
From my left.
I just wanted to mention, I know Superintendent Kinder had talked about the Facebook page that a parent had started. It's the VVSD Parent Network for Remote Learning. And Mithra Zaucha is a very involved parent in the community. And she started that page, and she has the help of Jenny Park, another parent. And they have done a phenomenal job on that Facebook page. If you haven't joined it, I encourage you to do so. People are asking questions. They're getting solid answers. There's not gossip on there. There's not, I think. There's solid answers. There's good suggestions. A lot of people are asking, how are you setting up your kids' workstation, or things like that. Very, very positive and informative Facebook page. So please, thank you to Mithra for starting that up. It was a fantastic idea.
I have something. I just need to ask, I know we had another visitor come talk at, I think it was the last meeting. Stephanie Ryan asked about Wilco plans, and I haven't heard or seen anything about that. Do we know anything about any Wilco plans yet?
Hi, good evening. My name is Adam Herder. I'm the executive director for our middle and high schools. And Member Gilbo, we've have been working both at the district curriculum level, but also the school administration at both high schools to set up a schedule for students to be able to take programming from Wilco. And so what is being finalized now is just the exact scheduling for how that will work in conjunction with their online learning schedule at school. But I know that parents have been receiving information, and we can bring a more specific update at the next meeting or get that to you sooner, obviously, too.
So are they online learning totally as well?
That was what was being discussed. Where we're at is trying to see what opportunities there could possibly be for in-person learning, since it's a smaller, campus and number of students. But at this time, I would say it's undetermined.
Thank you, Adam. I also want to say to all the students out there, enjoy your learning experience, and I hope you have a great year, and especially now at the start.
Anyone else? Yeah, I just echo what others have said. it's going to be interesting to say the least, but hopefully the kids will adapt to it, the teachers will adapt to it, administrators, families, and hopefully it's not for a prolonged period of time. We're not going to be perfect in this, but we're going to try real hard, and I think that's what we can do, and once we have been ground down, we're going to continue to try beyond that, and I think everybody that's up here and in the buildings and at homes, people are trying to do the best they can with this situation. Trust me, and I'm sure people's patients are a little frazzled. Kids are the same way. I hope the children and the, young children, middle-aged kids, and the high school kids all get into some kind of a routine that's very productive and useful. And then hopefully, when these buildings get back open, they hit the ground running. And you will probably not find very many kids for the next couple of years who will say, "I don't really want to go to class." I think that's going to change. I think that'll change dramatically. Not unlike our generation where I don't want to go to school, so. But I do want to thank everybody for their efforts behind the scenes. It's like the duck, that's paddling like crazy underneath, but the water's calm on top. But I know that there's a lot of paddling going on underneath, so. That's my comments. Any announcements by the administration? No announcements by the administration. Any announcements by the public? Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Have a great and safe evening. Thank you.